Oh yeah, like
Okay.
that one stream that I didn't say anything when you were on there. You were up on on your stream when someone was saying some very bad stuff and everything else, and you had a stream on it. And normally I jump in and I start, getting a little bit vulgar sometimes. But I was just listening to you and listening to you and everything else. And I seen the hurt and everything else that you were feeling. And I was like, you know what? This woman, she cares so damn much. And
Yeah.
I don't like to see people hurt by others, especially on YouTube. Whatever's
Right.
in your
Yeah.
personal life, you got to deal with that.
Right.
My life. So
Well, I appreciate that.
we have a
I do
lot.
got. I got to get my ass in there because I do want to super chat your ass because I want to. I love to make people's eyes like pop open a little bit sometimes. Like, what the fuck was that?
Well, one of these days I'd like to get you up on panel. Yeah, my
Oh
eyes.
God!
Yeah.
And something
We.
nice, right? The people will be like, "Wait a minute, wasn't Uber Goober and Lunatic Dad sitting there busting out on each other?" I'll be like, "Look, we were just messing with each other. We have a big respect for each other." And I even told people that because believe it or not, sweetheart, I had people come to my channel mad at me that they first met me. They were like, "Leave her alone, leave her alone. You shouldn't treat her like that," and everything else. And I'm sitting there like, "Guys, this is all bullshit. You can't see this is we're going back and forth messing because they were hearing how swearing I was because I do a lot of that."
Oh, bless
Yeah.
her heart. They were sticking up for me.
Yeah, they were, and I'm sitting there like, "Oh shit." I'm like, "Wait a minute. This has to come to an end like now because I don't want to get a reputation that
Okay.
Lunatic Dad and Uber are at war with each other or something." I'm like, "I don't want no piece of that. That's something in which I have respect for. Why in the hell do I want a war with that?" No.
Christmas Payne, Pitbull Mom, Irish Whiskey 77, Janet Moore,
Oh, we're
Rubik's Cube
live.
Gaming Man. Oh yeah,
Oh
we've
wait,
been
we're
live.
live now.
Why didn't you tell
Yeah,
me we were live?
yeah. Well, I tried to, but you was just kind of. I just let you
Holy,
go.
how long
Oh,
has
my
it
bad.
been for?
My bad. Shit, all this time.
Well,
Well,
I
now
still
We haven't
don't
been
see
live
it.
that long, guys. Don't worry.
hey
Why
Uber,
do I not see it?
Uber, everybody knows now that me and you are perfectly beautiful hearts with each other. That's good.
That's right.
And I had no idea we were
We're live
live.
tonight.
I had no idea.
All right, guys. This is what we're doing tonight is I wanted to kind of highlight some big name YouTubers on the panel, and let them tell their story of where they were on 9/11 and what their feelings were, and let them interact with other YouTubers and how they felt and ideas and you know stories in general. We've got veterans, we've got first responders, we got people coming on that were had boots on the ground at ground zero. Um, and obviously the panel, not all the panels up here. In fact, we got so many people wanting to come up that it'll fill the panel twice over. So they're going to be filtering in periodically, but we wanted to go ahead and get started on time. James Sharpshooter, fam, thank you, brother, for dropping links, taking care of things, watching out for us. I'm just going to go right down the line with everybody, starting from the far end, and we got Uber Goober on the far end, and I know that she's been having breathing issues and things like that. So I don't want to tie her up too long. So I'll let her get her story in first. Okay, guys.
Hey, everybody.
Yep.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. Well, hey, everybody. Sorry, my dogs are running around here playing. Settle down, boys. Settle down. Well, let's talk about 911. I'll tell you what. I was in Montana at that time, actually working for Exxon. And I can remember we had the TV on out into the lobby, customers coming in and out. And about that time, one of my cashiers said, "You need to stop and look at this. Somebody just hit the tower." I said, "What?" She said, "Yes, a plane went into one of the Twin Towers." And I said, "There's no way." So I turned on the TV, and you could see the fire. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just even thinking about it. And you could see the fire and the smoke. And I stood there in awe, and actually, then the second plane hit. And as I turned around, I bet there was, 30, if not more people standing behind me, and you could see the tears rolling down their faces. There was one lady shaking, visibly shaking. There was another one that said that she had, can't remember who it was, but that was over there in New York. We stood there probably a good, I don't know, maybe an hour, if not more. The same people stayed in that place and watched the TV. I'm getting, goosebumps as we're talking about it, because you saw the people coming out of there crying and hurt. And the families that were watching this, I can't imagine being a family member and watching this on TV, knowing that your family members are there. You could see the grief in people's faces. Just when I turned around and looked, all those people were so visibly shaken. And to this day, I mean, I wasn't at any place special, but I was at a place where I felt like I was right there with everybody that was going through that at that time. I felt so involved and so bad for everybody involved. I just couldn't imagine what was going on. And the people around me, they were visibly shook too. So even to this day, I still think about it very often, a lot. And that's what I was doing. As a matter of fact, I believe we shut down the store. I believe we shut the store down. It was like an hour or two later. Because just out of respect. I believe it was a couple hours later that we did that. So, yeah, it was pretty bad. The people were so visibly shaken. I mean, they were shaking. One lady was crying. She was shaking. It was terrible, terrible. So, yeah, that's where I was.
Thank you for sharing your story with us, and I could hear in your voice that you kind of wanted to tear up just telling us about it, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, it shakes me to this day.
Welcome, Brenda G, to the panel.
Hello,
Happened,
Ghost.
Brenda.
Well, welcome, Brenda.
Hey, Brenda. On the panel.
Hello, Brenda.
Hello.
Let's see who we got next in line. We got Lunatic Dad over there next in line.
Well, can you
Where
guys
were you
hear
at
me?
that day?
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear you real good. What was you doing on September 11th? I know you got.
Well, on September 11th, I was starting my brand new job, my very first day at Coca-Cola. I was being trained by a guy named Sean Cardona. I remember the man's name. I remember that day so vividly. We were inside the truck going to St. Francis Hospital to go ahead and fill up the pop machines. We were just sitting there. We were listening to it was on 720, which is basically, WGM radio on AM here in Chicago. Basically, when it first hit, they were saying that they thought it was just like an accident, like it wasn't a terrorist attack right away. Then after the second one hit, that's when they started saying that we were under attack. What I felt at that moment at first was I was so angry and so enraged that so many people have lost their lives. I felt rage before I actually felt sorrow or feeling bad for people, because none of us knew how many people actually lost their lives. And I can honestly say that that day will always live in the history of my heart and everybody's heart throughout the world. We were attacked by cowards, plain and simple. And that day, all the people who went in there trying to rescue people, the firemen, the policemen, everything. I mean, it was just insane what I was watching, because at that point in time, we drove, when we got inside the garage at St. Francis Hospital, we immediately went to their cafeteria, which had the TVs inside there, for patients that if you want to watch and everything else. So, I mean, the whole room was completely filled, and everybody just had tears just coming down their eyes and everything else. And even though I just felt, me personally, first anger, but I felt so violated as that how something like this could even possibly happen, to realize that how many people actually just want to murder and kill and be cowards, that they had to go around it that way. You had mothers, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, and everything else, and my heart was completely ripped out. And as I said, I mean, all the veterans and everything, this is why we salute the veterans and everything else, because of what they are trying to protect, which is our freedom, our liberties, and everything else. And they try to, when people get, they think about all the stuff that they fought and everything in the wars and everything else, it's precisely because of this, what happened on September 11th. Now, mind you, as I said before, this is to the day. It happened on a Tuesday, and the only thing I can possibly say is, I mean, the grieving people, they're always going to live this. I mean, just imagine all the families who lost their loved ones, and all the firemen and policemen and everybody that was involved on ground zero. Every time this comes, it's not like as if we like lose a loved one or whatever. Yes, we feel for that, we grieve, we get over it. They have to relive this on a daily basis, and on that day they're always reminded of what happened that day, more so than if you didn't have anybody there or whatever. The pain and suffering that them people have to be going through, especially on this day. Yes, you salute them and everything else, but you'll always know this should have not have happened. I lost a loved one because of cowards. And as I said, the only thing I can possibly say is, God bless America. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to share my story on here. It's very, very, very emotional for all of us. And Ghost, thank you for allowing and letting us all up on this panel. It means the world to us. But the only thing I can say is thank you to the veterans and to everybody that is out there. That, I mean, even the people that gave money and everything else, that gave money to the funds and everything else to help out the families and everything else of 9/11. There was so much of that going on. And one other thing I do want to say, and this was the ugly side of 9/11. Everybody knows I grew up in the city of Chicago. Once that happened, they deemed it as a terrorist attack. Literally, people were going to the mosques. They were going to anything that was Arabic or anything from that part of the country. And they were literally breaking in homes. Some of them even burned down their churches and everything else. So that was the ugly side, because let's not forget that they are human beings too, and a lot of them don't think what happened that day was right, and they actually just, Osama bin Laden, may you rot in hell, you son of a bitch. Thank you.
Yeah, there was 443 firefighters that passed away during 9/11. There was over 200 people that jumped out of windows in the buildings and fell to their death. 200 people. Wow. Can you imagine how desperate you had to be to jump out a window in a high-rise building, knowing that there was no possible way that you was going to live through it? Just
yeah.
Sobering, man. It is. I remember where I was
telling your story, Dad.
Thank you, baby. I love you. Oops.
I love you too, honey.
I was still in bed that morning when the first plane hit, and my uncle had called me. He I woke up and I answered the phone. He says, "Are you watching TV?" Yes. "No, I just woke up." He says, "Well, turn on the television." Turned on the TV, and they were talking about the first plane hitting. And just a few weeks before, somebody had like crashed a plane into the Sears Tower. Only it was like a Cessna or something. They had committed suicide by doing that. And I was thinking, well, is this another one of those situations, or what's going on? And my uncle's like, well, we don't know yet. And just a few minutes later, the second plane crashed, and right then we knew that it just wasn't an isolated incident. And so the first thing I do was got up, had my kids, took them to their grandmother's. Well, their grandmother actually lived with us, so I took them downstairs to my grandmother, and I got dressed, jumped in the vehicle because I was on the fire department at that time, and literally jumped in the car and headed to the rescue squad, because we didn't know how many planes had been hijacked at that point, where they were at. There was speculation, rumors, confusion, panic, all at the same time. And I live here in the Ohio Valley on the river, and there's a lot of power plants up and down this river, and are potential targets for a terrorist attack. So we spent the next 48 hours at that rescue building just waiting to find out what was going to happen next. We literally brought in extra televisions into the fire department and had each TV on a different channel monitoring multiple sources. We were on phones talking to EMS directors and things like that to see if we were going to get put on the list to go to ground zero to help out. I mean, it was everybody in the community came together, and that was probably the most people I've seen at that fire hall in years for one specific, call. And it was, after that, the communities came together, the sense of patriotism in the United States. Everybody was flying a flag. There was flags on screen doors. There was flags on flag poles. There was flag stickers on every car. Every car. It was everywhere. The American patriotism was everywhere, rampant, for probably 10 years after that. I think it saddens me to think that sense of patriotism isn't there anymore, though. You know what I mean? And it took a tragedy like 9/11 bring the nation together the way it did at that time.
True. I feel the same way, Ghost. Feel the same way.
Now, Brian, being up there in Canada now, I know that him and JoJo have a story and all that. And I know they weren't in the Americas when it happened, but it affected them just the same. Brian, you want to tell us your story?
I was in high school at the time of September 11th, and there were a lot of Canadians aboard that as well, and Americans, and it's just the way Obama went and would kill everybody, it still touches my heart till this day how many actually passed away. And we had the whole entire school was filled because I was in high school at the time. We had some of the soldiers come in to the gymnasium and everything at the school. We half-mast all the flags, and we turned it on in the gymnasium on the big screen TV, and we watched it the whole day. And it's the pain that every family had endured that day. I don't know, it touched me in a way, because all the veterans met and all the firemen lost, everybody on that day, And like Lunatic Dad said, at first they said it wasn't an attack, and then the second plane crashed, and then it turned into being attacked. And I don't know. I don't remember a whole lot because I was really young, but it was a hard all day for sure.
I think the thing that lit a fire under our community was when the fourth plane came down over here in Somerset, which is only about a hour and 45 minutes away from where we're actually at.
Yeah.
It got pretty intense when that fourth plane come down because, we've sat through 2 hitting the towers, 1 hitting the Pentagon, and now 1 come close to where we're at. How many more are up there? And that was the question. We didn't know what was going on. And they wasn't sure.
Right.
Yeah.
No doubt. It was the unknown.
Uber,
What was next?
Thanks for jumping up here, Uber. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Take care, Uber.
Take care, Uber.
Bye, Uber Goober lady.
Hi, Uber. Hi, Uber
Green Bay,
Goober lady.
Okay. Green Bay, we're just kind of going down the list. So it's like right now it's we're on to Brenda G.
Thanks for inviting me, Ghost.
Absolutely.
It's shocking and amazing to me at the same time how people remember exactly where they were on 9/11. It was such a shocking event to people. I mean, and it's still shocking today to think back on it. I remember exactly where I was. I remember exactly the clothes I was wearing. I was in the kitchen making soap, and I had a farmhand out in the barn doing some work for me. And here I seen out the window, he was running toward the house like his feet was on fire and his rear end was catching. And I'm like, what in the world's going on? And he comes up to the door and he's banging on the door. I get to the door and he says, turn on the TV, turn on the TV. And I said, well, what in the world's going on? He says, there's a plane that's hit the World Trade Center. And he'd had the radio on down at the barn and heard it. So I turned on the TV, and that's where I was planted for the rest of the day, watching all of that unfold. And the tears, Lord, I cried an ocean of tears that day. It was the most gut-wrenching, heart. It would just rip the heart right out of your chest watching all that go down. Because they showing right on TV that people was jumping out of windows in that World Trade Center. And people were screaming out the windows for help. And nobody could get to them. And anybody that didn't live through that can't comprehend what we went through that day, feeling so helpless that there was nothing you could do for those people. And watching as the firefighters went into the building to try to rescue people, and were being told to turn around in the staircase that they wouldn't be able to help anybody get down. And if you didn't have any compassion in your heart for what was going on that day, there's something bad wrong with you.
Yeah, my biggest surprise was when the first building collapsed. I never expected the whole building to collapse and fall down. Then the second one collapsed. I was just like, I think Brian said it best there last night when he said you never knew what was going on next, and you felt like the whole world was about to explode. You just didn't know what was going on.
Watching the people run down the streets for their lives with clouds of smoke and dust chasing them as they ran. Running across that bridge, trying to get out of the city. And I turned on the computer at the same time, and I had friends that was living on Long Island, and they was typing in chats saying the smoke, it's unbelievable watching all that from across the bay. And knowing that there's nothing you can do to help anybody over there.
was definitely, words can't describe the emotions that a person would have went through that day.
I still don't even forget that day. You know, it's still right there.
You got Boomer and Aniki coming up next. Aniki, you want to go first? Ladies first. Boomer will be here for a while.
Had just dropped Jackson. I had just dropped Kynan off at school. He had just started kindergarten, or was it first grade? He was 6 when it happened, so I think he was in kindergarten when it happened. Anyways, I had just dropped him off at school, and I was on my way to school because I was going to college while he was in school, and there was no music. It was just that, like, a plane crashed into the World Trade Center, and I was like, what? So I get to school, and they had us all gather in the cafeteria, where they had all the TVs from the school, and they were just playing it. And then I get the call from Kynan's school to come pick him up. They had canceled school. They didn't know where the planes were. Like Ghost said, they didn't know how many there were, or, so they canceled all the schools in all of Colorado. So I left. I went and got my son and went to my mom's, and we were barricaded in the basement just watching it unfold because, you don't know where they are. You didn't know. And I just remember the look on Kynan's face, being so young, and he still remembers, it hitting. The second plane hitting and it coming down, and then another one and another one, and he was trembling. He trembled all day. We stayed at my mom's pretty much that entire day into the night, and then I finally was able to even just pry him to even out of my mom's arms to even come home. So, it affected, us as adults, but it also affected the children that were watching it. Because, children, they were having it, like Brian said, they were putting it in the classrooms and letting these kids watch it. And it was of all ages. It wasn't just high schoolers. Kynan was watching it.
How old was Jackson when that happened?
I hadn't had Jackson yet. Kynan was only 6, so yeah, it was just me and Kynan. But yeah, and sometimes it's really hard to even still, even people that are of that religion, it's sometimes hard to look at them like, like you're still so scared. And, they're trying to teach Jackson right now in school, and I can show you the paper of them trying to teach that religion to the kids in school. And, I don't know. It's still hard. It's still, every day's hard, And it just seems like there's just been an increase in violence since then.
I can't even picture, like Jackson wasn't born yet. The fact that they're teaching children that wasn't there already. Right. It's only been 17 years. It's been 17 years today.
Right.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, like Jack, it's in our history books now. It's in Jackson's history books. And now Jackson has to learn about stuff like that. And he's already scared of school shootings, and now he's scared of this. And now he's like, what do I do? This isn't my religion. What do I do? Like, they can't teach about Christianity in any school, but they can teach, you know, about the Jewish faith, about the Islamic faith, you know, of all these other faiths. And it's as a parent, it's, you know, you can't teach your kid to judge a person, no matter what they are. So, and he is actually he's actually striking against learning about it, and he put a big giant X down the, and I can show you guys the middle of his paper, a big giant X, and said, this is wrong, and this, I don't believe in this, and I'm not going to learn about this. And that's what he wrote. And I mean, he's standing up for his own faith, and I don't know, you know, he's a teenager. He's got to kind of like start learning his own way, but also trying to teach him not to be judgmental against people that didn't have nothing to do with it, you know. So.
Now, Boomer, you were in the military when this all went down, weren't you?
Oh, actually, no. I've been out of the military. I got out in '94, actually.
Okay, so
when this went down on 9/11, I was actually living in Indianapolis at the time, going to a business college. And all I can remember that day, I got to school that morning, and I walk in, and I see everybody in the students' lounge, students' cafeteria area there. All the faculty and all the students were like piled into this students area, and they're all like watching the TV, and I come in, and you know, most of the students there knew I was from New York State. They weren't exactly sure like what part of New York I was from, and as soon as I walked in, like all eyes were on me, and one of the students that I came close to walked up to me before I walked in there, and kind of like trying to give me like a heads up, like you know, it was like be prepared kind of thing, you know. And I'm walking in there, and they're like, "Hey, you're from New York, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why? What's going on?" And they're all watching the TV, and I look up, and I see, as I look up, they're recapping the plane actually hitting the tower, and they're flashing pictures of the Pentagon, stuff like that. And I look up, and it's like, all I can remember is I looking up, seeing the TV, and I just kind of froze for a minute. I was like, I went totally numb. I'm like, well, what the hell is going on? Is this real? What, I mean, like, what is happening? And they said, well, they've been showing this for an hour now. Like, 2 airplanes hit the Twin Towers. I'm like, what? This has got to be a joke. Like, no. You know, and they're trying to explain as much as they could about what the news was saying. And I didn't even, I mean, I couldn't even hear the news. I couldn't do nothing but see the screen. Like, all sound was gone. Like, I mean, and all I could think of was, oh my God, you know, I got to call my folks and, you know, make sure, like, because I wasn't sure if we had relatives in that area or not. So the first thing I did is I went and I called my mom and dad and asked them if they knew what was going on. They said, yeah, we're watching it now. I was like, well, we don't have like immediate family there, do we? And they're like, no, I don't believe so. And so I had a little sense of relief there, that, you know, my family was safe. But then it's like, you know, after the phone call, like the rest of the day is like not there. Like I can't remember what I did for the rest of that day. Because the only thing I can remember is standing there stunned, numb, looking at the screen. You know, and the last thing I did was call my folks, and then like the rest of the day is like a blank. I just, you know, I wasn't like my state of mind was just, you know, gone. Like I couldn't think, I couldn't concentrate or nothing because I was like, wow, how is this happening? Like, you know, then, you know, as the day went on, you started hearing more and more about how passengers of another flight made a plane go down in Pennsylvania that was headed toward the White House supposedly and all that. You know, we started hearing about the ones that hit the Pentagon, and I was like, wow, this is like, you know, I couldn't believe this is an all-out attack on the U.S. You know, I just, you know, the first thing I did was like start thinking about all those people and the, you know,
I can remember the and I don't know if the rest of you guys all remember, but the silence. There was no planes, there was no helicopters, there was nothing. There was just no sound from the sky, and it was weird.
And the shock didn't end for weeks.
Right.
People were all just walking around like zombies for weeks.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember just the silence. Just
I mean, I can't even remember going home that day. I just like, you know, Mom, I don't know. I can't even remember if we like didn't if they closed the school or I mean I can't remember anything but standing there staring at that damn screen, watching that plane over and over again crashing in the World Trade Center. I just
Well, that was on a Tuesday, and I did a craft show that following weekend, and it was normally thousands of people at this craft show. And shoot, I mean, there wasn't hardly anybody at the craft show besides what vendors managed to show up. And we just all kind of just sit there and stared at each other for the weekend. It was just shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do remember days later, like, you know, like sitting around for weeks and weeks, maybe months. Every time, like, I had a moment to myself to think, I kept wondering, you know, all right, what's next? What's going to happen? Like, are we going to be invaded? Are we going to be, you know, it was like.
Green Bay, Hawaii, what was things like up in your neck of the woods on September 11th?
I know exactly where I was. I was just waiting. Everyone was taking their turn. I was just listening. I was out selling a car care automotive center on the promotions that I do for auto service centers. I went in. It was a cold call. I was talking to the guy, and all of a sudden the manager came out literally with like a small television in his hand, stuck it up on the counter, and we're sitting there, and we went from pitching the auto service to what's going on? What's going on? He's like, we're at war. I'm like, what? He's like, we're at war. And I'm like, what do you mean? This was just shocking to me. And all of a sudden he was showing, take a look, it's all over. And we just started, you know, we stopped talking about sales and we just started watching the TV. And I called my wife and said, you're not going to believe this. We're at war. She's like, what? I'm like, the trade centers, the planes, it's crazy. It's, you know, I remember exactly where I was. I can be in that lobby of that car center. I remember exactly where I was. And when I got home, you know, after we just kind of put the sales call on hold, just all night long, just, over and over and over the footage. And I've come to the conclusion it really doesn't matter. I've watched a lot of conspiracy theory kind of, people with their opinions on what happened and all. It doesn't matter what happened, whether our government did it, their terrorists did it, whoever did it. A lot of people died. I can't never get that image of people jumping out of those buildings to avoid being burned. I can never forget that. That was like, could you imagine that? Jumping off like a, 100-story building or burning? It's just my heart. Just wow.
Yeah, kind of did get counseling at school because, like I said, as adults, it's hard to process it. But as little young children that were watching it, and it, like you're saying, like it just replayed over and over and over and over, and people were zooming in on people jumping, and it kind of was. And I just remember he was pale and just tears, and he already wears his heart on his sleeve, but just to watch anybody die from something that somebody else did is, but hundreds and hundreds of people died and they jumped, and so he ended up needing counseling from that, and still talks about it. We all do.
I see Fireman joined the Hangouts, but he hasn't joined the call. Fireman CV.
Thank you, Ghost, for doing this and letting everybody tell their story and where they were, and letting us know that, let's not forget, not just on this day, but every day. Every day, because
tell your story.
Their families remember them every day, so we should remember as well.
I will say this, Aniki, I do agree with what you were saying, though. They'll teach anything in school except Christianity.
Yeah, well, and I applaud him. He has several, Catholics that are in his class. He has several Christians that are in his class, and they all thought it was wrong. So, Jackson doing it and standing up saying, if I can't learn about my religion, I'm not learning about that. Like, no. And he made, I will show you, he made a giant black X through his paper and said, this is wrong.
Yeah, Lady Swan, she was working in an airport during 9/11.
Wow.
And when did they ground all the flights? Was it after the second plane hit? After the second plane hit, they grounded all the flights. You want to sit down here and tell them about it?
Like I said, the silence of that was eerie,
How long was it? Wasn't it like a week or two or a month? How long were the flights grounded for again? I can't remember that.
I don't know.
Depending on the airports, like some airports were just like totally shut down for like weeks. I remember nobody could fly out of Indianapolis for like almost a month.
Okay. Yeah, it was a
While
while.
they were working on tightening up security and stuff like that. There were no flights going out of Indiana for damn near a month. Other airports I'm not sure about, but even bus stations, I couldn't go home for like 2 weeks. I couldn't go home and visit my folks here in New York because even the bus stations were being locked down and stuff like that. So
see, I know for me, like, I'm Canadian, so I don't have like a connection to that country specifically other than friends that I had living there at the time. Because when I was in high school, which is when it happened, I was like 15 when it happened. And I had friends, like, we did pen pal experiments and stuff like that over the internet for school. And all I remember is the sheer panic. Like, when I walked in, I'm obviously a smart ass, you guys all know this. I walked in and I was like, oh, great, movie day, right? Not thinking. And the teacher's like, no, there's no school. Like, you can go home if you want, or you can stay and watch. I'm like, what are we watching? And she's like, well, the trade centers were attacked. And I'm like, no way. I'm like, there's no freaking way that's happened, right? And so I sat down, and the image that is burned into my head, like so many of you have already said, is the people that were wanting to get help so bad that they were jumping from the buildings. Like, it was almost like they would rather take their chance jumping than to wait and see what was going to happen next.
I do remember seeing a couple of people, like, they either had, like, giant garbage bags or...
Yeah, like, they were trying everything to try and make, like, a parachute or whatever.
To jump out and stuff.
Yeah, like, it didn't...
Trying to jump into the river and things
like
that.
It didn't affect us the way that it affected you, but it still shut down our schools up here. Like, our schools were shut down for the remainder of that week. They were having the kids that did come in, like me, because I didn't know that was going on. Like, I was going to a special school, and not special, like, learning special, but I was a horrible child growing up. But I was going to a special school, so, like, schools like that, we had the choice of either coming in and learning about it and watching it day in and day out, because it was on, that's all that was on our TVs for an entire week. And even after that, it just kept playing over and over and over again. And, like, it wasn't even just the teenagers. Like, the same for you guys. It had, like, our primary schools were showing it. Our high schools were showing it. Our junior highs were showing it. Like, all of it. So, like, kids as little as junior kindergarten all the way up to college were watching it. And it was insane.
Yeah, one thing it made me realize, and you know, I was just about to be 31 when this happened. You know, I was a month away from my 31st birthday. So, you know, and I've been in the service, and I've been other parts of the country. I've been to Panama and a total other country. And one thing this made me realize that for the first time in those 30 years, I've never gave it much thought until that day, is that any damn thing can happen. You know, like it, you know, that's the one thing I never expected to happen, and it actually did, is an actual attack on U.S. soil in 3 ways. You know, the Twin Towers, 2 planes, you know, one on its way to the White House, and the one hitting the Pentagon. I mean, for 30 years, I went through life, even going through the service, thinking, you know what, I can't see anybody having the gall to make an attack on the U.S. But that day woke me up and made me realize anything can happen. You always got to be on your guard. You know, you always got to be expecting something.
Since 1776, Americas have been attacked on U.S. soil 9 times. Doesn't seem like that because you don't remember them all, but 9 times we've been attacked on U.S. soil.
Well, like I was saying, it doesn't matter if it was something orchestrated by our own government, because either way, a lot of good people died that day. So whatever the conspiracy is, it doesn't really matter. A lot of our own people died that day. Very sad. Have you ever watched any of those cases for that? Those documentaries on what might have happened, actually?
Yeah, I have.
There actually is some really compelling evidence, which is kind of sad.
It is. It's sad that they would, like, it's almost like a select elimination. You know what I mean? Like,
well, they wanted.
Technetic Beat says, I think we're more vulnerable now than we've ever been.
Yeah.
I got to believe it's just underhanded deals with our government that's keeping us safe. Because, I mean, what, you know, you would just think anything could happen at any time, you know?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if our government's paying off groups, you know, to keep them from doing stuff, you know, to the higher ups, and the higher ups are holding off the soldiers, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, no bombs going off. We just got paid $1 billion, you know, or something. I mean, there's underhanded deals going on, I'm sure, you know?
Yeah.
The world's too complicated.
Because if they built those buildings in the intention of blowing them up, do you know what I mean? Like, there was work being done on it weeks prior to that, and I don't know.
You want to know
I
something
watched
really
them all.
weird? Yeah, I've watched.
I try to stay away from all the conspiracy theories.
But I like opinions like that. I just like.
Yeah, but you know, being prior service, you know, I try not to, you know, speculate and theorize, and you know.
One thing that really got me was, if any of us committed such a major crime, what is the first thing that governments do anyway? They go to your family and everything else. What made it bad, what got me angry and enraged, was that Osama bin Laden's family was put on an airplane and flown out of the country because they feared for their safety. What? Are you for real? Are you for real? You know who did it. You know who's claiming it. And what made me so disgusted is that so many people were burning our flag. So many people were dancing, celebrating, and everything else. And they didn't even bother to have the decency, as I said before on my testimony, didn't have the damn decency. And don't be a damn coward. These damn people who did this were cowards. Yes, all the people that died and everything else, that is just a complete tragedy in life, what has happened. But them son bitches, I don't care. I mean, I'm sorry for swearing. I said I wouldn't swear and everything else, but the emotions get the better of you sometimes. But when they turned around and flew his family out of the country immediately, no. Then you go on a manhunt trying to find them, everything else. You don't fly his family out. Sorry. I'm sorry. No, you don't do that. I'll tell you what, if I turned around and killed 12, 15 people on a mass murder spree and they're looking for me, the damn FBI and everything else is going to my family trying to find my ass. And that's, like I said, it's going back to what I've been saying over and over again. My original feelings was completely rage to where I was just like, and I'll be the first to admit it, I was so, and when it first happened, anything that was from that country, I was as racist and as anger. As soon as I seen them, I automatically put it that it's the same. It's the same. You guys, if you understand where I'm coming from, as soon as I seen it, I made it to September 11th. But that was wrong. But it was wrong for me to think like that. But when you seen, like Anarchy and Green Bay and everybody's talking about, see people jumping out windows, and you even see the people running on the street where it's all smoke and ash, and you can barely even see them and everything else, that was just so heart-wrenching. And I'm sorry, in the very beginning, I was just like, forget it, blow them all up, fuck it, I don't care. But then, you know, that's when you're younger and everything else, and you got all this bravado and everything else. But as time went on, and even now, even to this date, I sometimes struggle with this day, because sometimes, you know, all of us, not just America, every other country that are with the United States and everything else, at any point in time, it can happen to you. It's not just America. Terrorism is everywhere, in every country. They are hell-bent on destroying democracies, destroying freedoms. That's what they are hell-bent on doing.
You know, a lot of people suffered after, too. A lot of people forget. A lot of people got cancer and stuff from all the stuff that they breathed in. From all
because it was glass and rock and
asbestos and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Asbestos. Yeah, you got to figure that out.
I'm glad they built that memorial with the towers and everything else. I mean, and like Aniki said, never forget. It's not just a one-day thing. You know, you carry it with you and wear it on your sleeve and be proud. Be proud of the United States of America.
I just remembered. I totally forgot this small little detail. It's not a huge detail, but I forgot I was down in New York in Times Square about a year or so after it happened. And I remember we went down there to Ground Zero and saw it all caved in and collapsed and, you know, I forgot about that. And I was actually there about a year afterwards for a trade show. And it was very
that gave me chills.
It was very eerie I totally forgot about that. I remember driving our van by it. We were like, it was just surreal. Like, you know, if any other given time, we would have been looking up these huge, beautiful buildings, you know?
Yeah.
I totally, just, when Dad was talking there, I just remembered that, actually. Totally
Somebody said that they were still finding body parts from people from those towers.
Yeah, they were still finding body parts on rooftops even a year later.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
I believe it because there was just, I mean, that's just such tremendous force, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. It was the second anniversary of the attacks, and we were doing our planning for, you know, the parades and things like that with the fire department. And I said, look, September 11th is next week. I says, why don't we, instead of doing our regular parade this week and that, why don't we wait for next week and do what we call a silent memorial parade? And when I said that, eyes around the room lit up, and like the rescue squad, the fire departments in the area, they all jumped on board and they got everything squared away in less than 7 days to put this on. We had the Marines there. We had, we had a silent parade through town where there was no sirens, there was no candy passed out. It was literally dress blues and everything. It ended up at the local fairgrounds, and they did the 5-bell ring for the firefighters. And I mean, it turned into a big ordeal, but it was all organized in a matter of less than 7 days. And it all started with me going, why don't we just deep six the regular parade and do the memorial parade instead? And nobody had thought of that. Nobody had thought of it. And it's like the whole county came together to get that done in 7 days.
And you know,
that was still 2 years after the fact.
It's a shame, and you hit it right on the head, my friend. And thank you for everything that you have done in your life also. And I just want to say it is a shame that America, where we're at now, from back then, people have been so cruel now and everything else. And it took a tragic event for the country to come together. And I pray to God in the rest of my days I'm alive that I never witness something like that again. No wars, none of that mass killing and everything else, because that's not a way to bring your country together.
I have to say, my hat goes off to all the volunteers, firefighters, police officers, the military, veterans. I have the utmost respect for everybody in the armed services and Homeland Security.
Yeah, amen to
that. I cannot say thank you enough for everything that they've done.
Amen, brother.
Amen, brother. Without a shadow. Is anybody else in chat want to come up? Are you full? Because if you're not, I could step off because, as I said, these testimonies, what I'm hearing and everything else have been just overwhelming, but that's why I took off my camera so you can't see anything.
You know I support veterans. My dad's flag.
Yep.
So you know I'm in with you on that.
Yeah.
Yep. My brother served in Vietnam himself, and my father was also in World War II, and he got sent home because he got shot in the arm. I mean, I got lucky that, you know, that my father didn't pass away, you know, for our freedom.
I was hoping to be able to get a hold of him. I've kind of reminded him every time that I've been in his chat and things like that.
Who's that?
Cab 7.
Yeah, I tried to get a hold of him. He might be taking a nap too. You never know. He goes sometimes until he has to take his 3-hour nap, you know?
He would have been a very good one to have up here. Very good.
Yeah, my grandpa that's in the hospital now, he was in the Vietnam War.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad was too.
My husband Vietnam.
Yeah, my grandpa watched one of my uncles explode right beside him.
Wow. Holy shit.
Oh, my dad told me a few stories like that, and I've always tried to tell people, and not to ask veterans for those stories, number one, let them be private, but once in a while they open up. But number two, people have to realize that when when these people are in those situations, if people drive around their SUVs trying to talk about politics, and veterans are out. I mean, when they were in action, some of them were literally fighting for their lives every day.
Well, he was drafted. My dad was drafted into the Vietnam War. I mean, he refused to run, and he would tell me he would not do it, so he would rather sit in the kitchen and peel a potato than run.
My dad had nightmares. Yeah. My mom, if she would if he would get touched, he would like he was back there again, you know.
My dad too, yeah.
And I didn't even realize how bad he was messed up for the whole rest of his life. So the sacrifice he made,
especially in Vietnam, and especially in Vietnam, them boys. I mean, like I said, my brother told me himself that he was in with his squad, and literally they would put a freaking bomb or a grenade inside of a baby and have it come up to the soldiers. That is a true story. That's not a myth. That stuff really did happen in Vietnam. And my brother, one of my oldest brothers, he's so messed up in the head. I mean, getting back to what you were saying, that if you just touch him, he's like so defensive, like he wants to tear your head off. And I'm his brother, and he has I mean, the effects of it emotionally in their minds, what they seen and went through and everything else. Any time of war, I mean, you know, you're killing somebody. I know it's for freedom and everything else. I get it, but don't think that they don't envision, you know, maybe looking dead at somebody's eye and killing somebody. I mean, that stays with you forever.
Yeah, my dad never talked about that, but I'm sure, based on what he told me sometimes, that he probably had to put some people down of his own hand, and I know that really messed him up big time.
Yeah, I believe
that. My grandfather was a radio operator during World War II. He used to string telephone lines behind enemy lines for communications. Yeah. And he told a story about they were getting shot at from planes. And he literally had a 20 millimeter anti-aircraft bullet that split his hair down his scalp, and the phosphorus burnt his scalp. He had a reverse mohawk in the Army from almost getting his head shot off with a 20 millimeter anti-aircraft gun.
Oh, wow.
And one of his buddies found the bullet in a battery pack for one of the radios. It had actually hit and lodged in a battery pack, and he dug it out, and he carried that thing around all through World War II in his pocket. And the phosphorus, scarred his leg where he carried it around in his pocket, the phosphorus in the bullet tip, because there was a tracer round. And he had a permanent scar from carrying that. He carried that bullet in his pocket till the day he died. And that thing was, it was a slug the size of a shotgun shell. You can imagine almost getting your head shot off by an airplane.
Wow. And you know the weird part about it is that my son Kyle was born the same year that the Twin Towers was attacked. He was born September 16th, same year. That me and my wife, we always tell him that he's the Twin Towers and he's got strong shoulders just like the towers and them people. Well, I always remind Kyle of that. I said, you do realize the year you were born and then the month you were born was something that will always go down in history. Because when it first happened, I mean, that was kind of like the emotions that, I was going through at that time, was because, then I had the birth of my son. So I felt joy and everything else. But at the same time, I'm thinking about all them people that died that didn't have their sons and daughters and everything else. And I'm like, how fortunate, by the grace of God, I'm able to bring a life into the world instead of the life being taken out. I mean, that day was just so, sorry to say, fucked up.
It was definitely something, and it's one of those days that you're never going to forget. I mean, it's etched into our memory. Yep. They played those planes crashing into those buildings for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then finally somebody said, okay, this is breeding hatred. We got to take it off the thing. So we're not going to show the videos going into the videos of the planes crashing into the towers anymore. And then you didn't see it anywhere.
Yeah, I remember it played for like weeks and weeks, like almost months. It kept going on the air.
Because a lot of the mosques were getting attacked. I mean, Green Bay knows, you know, and then Wisconsin. I mean, I know they had a lot of stuff going down up there and everything else. I mean, there was literally people. I mean, especially me being from Chicago. I mean, I remember 3 mosques, 3 of them that they put on fire. I'm telling you, 3 of them that they just burned to the ground. That day when it happened, I mean, chaos was just great. I mean, besides the part of like what the hell's happening on this day, but the anger that was coming out, and it was just, and anybody that is Middle Eastern descent, it didn't matter. They could have been here their whole lives. It didn't matter on that day. And that, you know, that part they should not have ever had to endure, them people, because it wasn't
Ignorance
them.
breeds ignorance.
Yeah.
I remember they had $1 million bounties out on Osama bin Laden. There was people loading up boats to go overseas to try to find him on their own.
Yep. But you know what? It made us a stronger nation, you know, all these years later. I mean, believe it or not, if they actually did a study on September 11th every year or whatever, I bet you people are a little bit more kinder to each other, a little bit more understanding and everything else. I really believe that had a profound effect. But I wish they would have that all the time, not just one day out of the year.
Amen.
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed.
I mean, hell, look at what we're doing right now. We're sitting here on YouTube commemorating the warriors, commemorating all the people who have died and everything else. Look at the effects that is having. I'm sure we're not the only panel or YouTubers that are commemorating and everything else. I mean, it's a tribute to them people and their families and everything else. And
I commemorate them every damn day. I wake up every damn day looking at this. A tattoo that I designed that a buddy of mine in Indiana laid on me. And I look at this in the mirror every damn day to remember. I never forget. It's more than just one day a year for me.
I know my son will come home and he'll get a bad report card and so bad grade in social studies or something like that. And I'll tell him, I'll be like, you know, when I was your age, I didn't do that great in social studies either, you know? And I was like, what's 400-year-old Muslim religion have to do with me? I'm just going to live my life. I'm going to be here. I'm not going over there. I'm not messing with those people. And then 9/11 happened, son. Now I know what 400-year-old Muslim religion has to do with me. And I know that Jackson doesn't want to learn about their religions and things like that. But at this point, if you don't learn your history, you're kind of doomed to repeat it, so to speak. And knowing what 400-year-old Muslim religion is could prepare you for what is to come in the future, possibly. You know what I mean?
The only way to defeat your enemy is to know the mind of your enemy.
Right.
And history teaches us that. The Romans knew it. They, you know, you got to know your enemy. And to know your enemy, you have to study their history. You have to read their scriptures. You have to know. You have to get inside their mind. You have to know. And that'll tell you, that can tell you the next move. You know, if you don't know what they've done, you have no idea what they'll do next.
I know exactly what they're going to do next, and this is why people need to really be careful. A lot of people forget this. Our enemies are going to take us over from within legally through our own political system.
Yep.
They're what they're doing is they're actually legally taking high positions, offices, things like that. And eventually, that's what Abraham Lincoln said will happen to our country if we're not careful. We'll not be conquered.
Yeah, they're infiltrating our democratic system.
Because a house divided cannot stand.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln said we'll be taken over from within. We're not going to be conquered.
And there's one person that I blame for that. I won't mention any names, but
I didn't do it.
He's the one that got the ball rolling on that. He's the one that let him into our offices. He's the one that, and
sorry.
It eventually there's going to become a day where we're not going to be the United States of America. Because they're going to get us from within our own democratic system.
Well, yeah, they're going to do it legally. And as soon as the Constitution's thrown out the door, like it doesn't even matter. It's just a fiction book. It's all over.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about one particular group of people. I'm just talking about anyone that is against our freedoms.
I think
Well,
you
they're doing it
underestimate.
now. Like, I mean, you could be 18 and buy a gun. Legally buy a gun, but an 18-year-old is still in high school. There are a lot of 18-year-olds that are still in high school.
Yep.
But the more that our
should
enemies
change.
get into our government, the people that are against our freedoms, and they start changing the laws little by little, it's one at a time. And everyone's so busy with cable TV and their SUVs, they're not even watching what's going on behind the scenes. So it's like a free-for-all.
Yeah.
Yep. I do agree with that, Dave.
I'm just being honest,
Do you think 70 years ago, if YouTube had been around, there'd been a panel sitting around remembering Pearl Harbor?
Right. Yes, I believe that.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, bet you be able to do whatever on what we call YouTube.
I'll tell you, if social media was this developed 17 years ago, 9/11 probably wouldn't have happened. You know what I'm saying? Like,
or it could have been worse.
Yeah.
They had the internet then, and that's how they were communicating with each other and planning things out was online. They didn't have the cyber crime units and stuff that they do now. So it was a lot easier for them to make contact via code through chats or whatever. But yeah, that's how they were able to organize planes leaving from different areas at the same time and coordinate their efforts. I mean,
yeah,
if it would have been
back then, like social media wasn't like this, where like everybody was available to all that information. They had, it wasn't as widespread, and they had like these small little groups that could like communicate to each other privately, and it was like.
I'm thinking they might not have had the same target.
Our government got whiffed of this 5 years before it went down.
Well, it wasn't the first time that Osama bin Laden hit the Twin Towers. He had bombed the Twin Towers back in '74 or something like that.
I vaguely remember something happening then. I was 6 years old then, and I vaguely remember something like that going down. Yeah, I mean, we were. When I was on my way out, when there was what they called shuttle bucket or whatever that term is, water cooler talk about something going down. And, we were always prepared to deploy for something like this constantly because they knew something was going to go down. They knew it for sure, like 100% for sure something was going to go down. And every day we were preparing ourselves for this. We were doing exercises, practice, deployments, and we were doing all kinds of stuff preparing for something like this. But the thing is, they didn't know exactly when it was going to happen, but they were already preparing us for it before I even got out of the service. And I got out in '94. And they knew it was going to happen. They knew damn well it was going to happen. We were being trained for it. We were on these hush-hush pretend missions, getting prepared for it, and they knew it was coming. They just didn't know when. And 7 years later, yep, it happened.
Hey, Dave, how long did your father serve in the military?
I don't know. He was in there for a while, and then he after that he went to the Merchant Marines. I don't know the actual time, but I went to find it. I'll have to ask my wife. I forgot about it. I thought since we were talking about he's got a medal. I've got a medal that my dad had. And he was.
You know what that medal is, Dave?
No, I wanted to find it. That's what I wanted to find it. My wife knows where it's at. It's in safekeeping. You know how it goes. The wife is the one to keep good thing or important things like that. The husband will screw it up and lose it.
He should.
But
you said he was
out of my house.
You said he was wounded, right?
No, he was. But he told me, like Saving Private Ryan. That was him. He was on the boat that went down, and he went out.
Mm-hmm.
And once in a while, he'd relive his stories with me. Once in a while, and my jaw would. I was a kid. I didn't even. A teenager.
Right.
And he said that he just ran. He said all his friends around him were dying. He said he just ran, and somehow he made it off the beach. And he was a forward scout. He said he would find, the enemy, I guess, for lack of better words.
He was a point man,
and he would radio back, where they were and give them the coordinates. And he was really messed up. He saw the action. He was the guy.
Oh yeah,
he saw it, right, and his whole life was messed up because of it.
My hat's off to your dad.
He told me a story. This is the kind of stuff when people, he told me the story once, and it was like he was reliving it. He was talking about this sergeant they were getting shelled, and he's like, I told him, get your ass down. And he said, and then his head just blew off right in front of him and rolled right in front of him. And that's the kind of stuff that these veterans have seen. And man, people, that's why you got to have respect for what is going on. I mean, they didn't ask to be there, but they were there. And that was just one thing. That was just one incident. I mean, he was there for years,
Yeah.
And
the stuff he went through and the stuff he knew, Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my dad ended up being like a radio person that fixed the radios and stuff because back in the Vietnam, like he was a hippie. Him and my mom were hippies. They believed in peace and love, They were going to run to Canada with us but before they could flee, because all those people that took off and left, they got pardoned anyways. Well, he got drafted, so he had to go, but he refused to do the PT, any of this stuff, and he sat in the kitchen and peeled potatoes.
I don't know if you can see this here,
but he still had that trauma of waking up and like really freaking out. Like, you couldn't wake him up. You gotta just let him wake up on his own.
Is that your dad, Wacky?
This is my dad in his full uniform. It's an old black and white. I keep it in my wallet to remember him.
Wow.
So
awesome.
That's my dad right here with me. And and by the way, when I was talking about that, not to diminish any veteran that didn't see action. I don't care if you were a clerk, a cook, anything. Any veteran that served, total respect for.
Yeah, because my dad still saw it, you know, and people with no limbs coming back, and yeah.
Hey, Lori?
Yep.
What happened?
What happened?
There it is. Okay. I froze up there for a minute. I don't know what was going on.
I don't know. It's like,
My
And
internet is still messed.
and everybody who's got that Hurricane 4 or 5 coming your way, please seek shelter and be smart. Please.
yeah.
I am sitting.
Jackson's grandmother is actually in South Carolina, so we haven't heard anything from them.
They actually said North Carolina and South Carolina are supposed to get a brunt of it that is coming right at them.
They're in Charleston, so I don't know. We haven't heard anything, so I think they might have fled. I think they might have left.
Well, they said it was supposed to go Wednesday night into Thursday morning. I'm hoping that, like I said, I'm hoping everybody heed the warnings and everything else. I mean, get out.
For the last 3 days, myself, Uber Goober, All Run Paranormal.
Very good. Yes, the warning and everything else. And about the scammers and everything else.
Well, for the last 3 days, me and Uber Goober have been doing like updates on Hurricane Florence on her channel every day at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to be doing that all week. So we've been up on panel. I've been putting up graphics. HSFL was on there with us today. He was putting up information because he was actually from Wilmington, North Carolina area, and he knew a lot of the emergency management numbers over there. So if you guys want to check that out tomorrow, 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I know there's a lot of people down in that area that are YouTubers that are kind of stuck and can't get out. We've been dropping their PayPals over there and trying to get them help. And now it's coming down to the last 36 hours. So tomorrow is like the last chance that they got to get out of there before the storm hits. But
yeah, they were saying that it diminished a little bit. I was watching the Weather Channel, but they said don't be deceived by that because the eye might have gotten weaker. But they said by the time it's landfall, it's going to intensify to a possible Category 5. And
yeah, it actually weakened early this morning, and then the eye repaired itself, and it started getting stronger again. Currently, it has sustained winds of about 140 to 150 miles an hour. By the time that it reaches shore, they're predicting a Category 5, which is winds in excess of 157 miles per hour or greater.
Yep.
And
well, I mean, what happened like in Puerto Rico? I mean, that was the shame of the actual number. They said that you combined all the past 6 hurricanes together with how many people had perished and everything else. I mean, but in Puerto Rico, they didn't have the same stuff like we have here stateside and everything else. I mean, people they're getting the warnings way in advance. Get out. Get out. Don't sit there and think that.
Now it is a mandatory evacuation for all the coastal cities and counties all along the shoreline from Maryland down to the southern tip of South Carolina. Mandatory.
Yep, I mean,
Jackson's grandma is actually one that is going to be
southbound highway.
Stubborn and stay there.
Yeah, they've closed down the southbound highway, and they're routing traffic north on the southbound highway for the evacuation. So both directions are heading one way. You're not allowed to go into the states down that way right now. Only out.
Yep. Because believe it or not, I mean, I know this kind of like ties in. Even my company, and you know, I'm a truck driver and I carry goods and everything else. They said on the East Coast that they got truckloads just ready to flood, inundate into there. Because everything, I mean, everybody's wiping out the supermarkets, everything. I mean, gas, everything is gone.
Oh, yeah. Gas is gone. Supermarkets are gone. They're having shortages on wood paneling, nails, screws, things like that. And like your Harbor Freights and things like that are getting cleaned out from like the tools and the drills and, you know, anything that they can secure their house or board up their house with, the materials. Lowe's, Home Depot, running low on things. Water, there's price gouging going on down there. You know, $6, $7, $8 a case for bottled water.
Wow. See that they need to make that illegal. They really do. That's something the government can step in and say, and if you're getting caught doing that, you know, there's got to be some type of law. I mean, these people are already going to be going through so much hell and everything else.
Price gouging is against the law.
Well, look what they did after 9/11. I mean, for the first 3 days after 9/11, gas prices shot up to $5 a gallon. People price gouging. The president had to come in and put a freeze on gas prices.
Yep. And I don't know about anywhere else, but in Indiana, every gas station that went above $4 a gallon on their gas prices during that time, they had for 1 month straight, they had to bring their gas prices down to under $1 a gallon for a whole month.
Oh, really? I don't remember that. Huh.
There were people like lined up for miles at 5 different gas stations that I tried to get to. People were filling up their cars, filling up cans. I mean, yeah, they were one Sunoco actually went out of business. Like they couldn't get gas fast enough to keep up with the demand, and they actually went out of business.
Do you remember when we had to turn it to Century and Y2K when everybody was saying, "Oh, everything's going to crash," and everybody's loading up on water and building shelters and all this other shit?
Yeah. I was actually working at a hotel in Ithaca, and I was generally maintenance there, but we asked to do security as well. That night, the New Year's Eve that night, I was doing security there, and we weren't allowed to use the elevators and all that and everything. And they thought the computers would, like, we were all afraid we weren't going to get paid because everybody was talking about how the computers won't roll over because of the date change and stuff, and like we may not get paid and stuff like. Yeah, I remember that.
Me and my wife sat there and counted down with my computer in front of us, and then it rolled over. Like, yep, still working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The Y2K or whatever, is that what they called it?
The Y2K scare, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you what, a lot of people made a lot of money off that, though.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Like, people were hoarding water and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, then I was working for Hinckley & Schmidt. I don't know if you guys know that water company.
Ramen sales doubled.
And I was given, people were saying every delivery for the next 6 months, give me an extra 4 big bottles every delivery. I'm sitting there, man, I made a shitload of money as a driver, though.
Hey, John, what's up?
What's up, buddy? Hold on just a minute. I'm just hooking in my webcam. Sorry.
Well, between Y2K and the 9/11 incident, I think that kind of put preparedness on the map. And
absolutely,
you know, there's still a lot of channels and a lot of chat rooms that dedicate to being prepared, and it's a good idea to always be prepared.
And here's another thing that a lot of civilians aren't aware of as well. We had a threat on all veterans, all former military. There was a threat that ISIS was out to take out any veterans they come across.
Yeah.
So yeah, I still to this day, if I go outside my apartment or go anywhere in the open area, I'm constantly looking for a red dot. Honestly, seriously, because I take those threats, very real. Because there's organizations out there who just despise any kind of military or and
it's what you symbolize though is freedom and democracy and everything else. That's more so what they despise more than anything.
Right.
How dare a woman remember when they were in Arabia or whatever country that was for the first time that women can get a driver's license. And it's like wow, and they're celebrating it. I was like, wow, you want to talk about being so archaic? Gosh.
The biggest threat is like that's another reason why they want to disarm civilians and stuff like that, because like if they ever did try to physically invade, the first people that are going to be able to take up arms and be able to fight back are the veterans, the ones who have been trained for it. They're not too worried about Joe Deer Hunter so much as they are anybody who's ever had military training. So there was a big threat for years since 9/11 that once ISIS was discovered, and they have sleeper cells in the U.S. They have one here in Elmira, ISIS sleeper cell, and we were warned by various different organizations that they're out to get veterans, former military. They start with them, work their way into the private sector of law enforcement, and for years, like they've been warning us about it. So,
oh wow,
yeah, and they don't care if you were a cook or a Green Beret,
It gave me chills, Boomer.
Hey, Ghost.
It's freaky.
SFL, welcome.
Thank you, man.
So where were you at on 9/11?
I think I.
Sorry, go ahead, Dave.
Would you say Green Bay?
Dookie said he's taking off.
No audio, Dave.
He froze
No
up.
audio.
I think Dave went to sleep.
No, he's still there.
Pop out and come back in, Dave.
I thought maybe
that
he
usually
was
fixes
he
it.
got capped.
Where I was on 9/11, I was my grandparents had invited me, my sister, and my mom over for their house breakfast, and we were really excited. It was like 6 a.m, and because we only lived like 2 blocks away, or I think 2 or 3 blocks away, same neighborhood in Southern California at the time. My dad at that time was not too far away at the Marine base where we were going back and forth to. My grandparents moved closer to us while my dad was stationed at El Toro Marine Base in Tustin Ranch, California, which no longer exists. But yeah, we went over to my grandparents to have breakfast, and all I remember is every single channel was broadcasting live the Twin Towers falling.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a rookie mistake. No, what happened? See my screen here. I've got my Blue Yeti here.
Mm-hmm.
And I repositioned my screen, and when I did that, I hit the mute button on the Yeti. What I was saying was, I think I got Cab 7. I think he'll join us.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah,
I see Cab 7 was active. He had accepted my invite to YouTube chat, and I put the link in there for him, but he hasn't responded. to the chat yet.
Like, I vividly remember eating breakfast at my grandparents' house because she made her famous cinnamon rolls, and I never pass up my grandma's cinnamon rolls. And
now you're just hungry.
How old were you? How old were you, John?
Because it was right before we were supposed to go to school, and I remember going there, and all of a sudden it started broadcasting, and by the time we went to school, all that information started coming out.
I'll be right back, guys.
And they actually shut our school early down, and we ended up going back over to my grandparents' house and watching the news. I was 8 years old. My grandparents let us watch the news, and we, for hours, I couldn't imagine that somebody would do something that evil. It didn't click in my head at that age, until one of my neighbors told me, he's like, there were some evil people that intentionally caused those towers to go down. And that's when I can just remember him saying that. My neighbor was older, but he kind of watched me and kind of was like my neighbor / mentor growing up, because he always hung around the kids and watched people's kids when nobody else would, and he never asked for payment, and he was a really good guy, and I still friends with him to this day. He lives down in Georgia, and I just remember in Southern California we were all shocked, and then after that happened, we got sent to Jacksonville, North Carolina. And I've lived in between North Carolina, Texas, and California my whole life.
I think all schools and businesses everywhere closed early that day.
Oh, yeah.
Because nobody could work or study. I mean...
No. Yeah, I remember picking Kynan up. Just,
honestly,
parents were fleeing, running, running into the schools to get their kids.
When that happened, both my kids were in Head Start, and we kept them home from school that day. We did not send them to school because we did not know.
I didn't even know it happened until I was driving to school right after I dropped him off. Well, he was already watching it.
Yeah.
At school, so I don't know all that he saw, but I do know that I was having to keep the TV off or play a video for him or something, because he was only 6. So he was seeing people jumping from buildings, and they're just replaying it, and the tears. And I ended up, keeping him home for the week, and I think the schools were closed for that week, and playing, the VCR for him, because movies, because that's all that was on every channel, and I wasn't going to traumatize him more after what he had already seen. And then, he still needed counseling after that because of watching people and then watching them run for their life from that smoke. I mean, it was like a nightmare. And he had night terrors for until he was about 14. He had night terrors, and he was a sleepwalker after that. And it traumatizes children. So I'm sure as adults it was traumatizing, but little kids can't process that,
My kids were too young to even remember it.
Cab 7. Welcome,
but I do vaguely remember what happened that day, and then I remember the most lasting impact of 9/11 was when it was probably 4 days later, and we were living in Southern California, and all of a sudden we saw an airplane flying into JFK Airport, and all I could think of, man, they're heading for Disneyland or something like that. Being an 8-year-old, I was like, because I grew up Disneyland wasn't that far away from where we lived, so I was like, they're either heading there or they're going to hit Los Angeles. That was my first thought. And that was a thought of a lot of Americans as those planes flew overhead days later or weeks later when they started getting up and running and flying again. It was really scary.
It was.
Hey, Cab 7.
How are you doing?
Hello.
Hey, Ben.
Great to see you.
Good to see all of you. Wow.
Now, Cap, do you remember where you were the morning of September 11th, 2001?
It was like it happened yesterday. barring any conspiracy theories, because I could really get into that too, but I won't. I had taken a nap, and when I had woken up, the TV was going, and I went, "Oh, cool! Look at that plane going to that building. That's really awesome." And I'm thinking to myself, what movie is this that I'm watching? And it's like, wow, this looks so realistic. CNN is doing the news as if this plane had gone into this building. And then all of a sudden, dang it. I can't even talk without falling apart. Son of a bitch. The second plane went to the building, and then I knew it was real. And it's like, as a veteran, if you know what that feels like, that our country is being attacked. I'd already been way out of the service by then. And it's like, holy shit. And I was ready to re-enlist. I mean, I was ready to re-enlist. Like, I'm ready to fight. But I won't ever forget it. I won't ever forget that, because what I thought was a movie was real, and it was happening to America, the place that I love so much. Son of a bitch.
And Cab 7, well, while I got you on here, and I said it earlier, thank you, man, for your service and everything that you've done for this country, man.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely, Cab 7. Thank you for your service. Really appreciate it.
You know it, Ben.
You know it, Ben.
Thank you for everything you do for everybody every day.
And Boomer Rock, thank you for your service.
Boomer.
Well, and Cab
You know it,
7, like,
man.
he reminds us to
Boomer, you too.
love our country every day, and he says it every day on his stream. He says that, you know, remember to love the country, love your country, whatever country you're from, love it. So, thank you.
And when I hear people say that being patriotic is racist, and that's something I've been hearing on Facebook and Twitter, and I ended up having to like turn it off for an entire day. I was that pissed after reading that. Some crazy, I'm not going to get into the whole political thing, but that really got under my skin when somebody said patriotism is racism. And I'm like, excuse me, are you the type of person that burns the flag? Because that's the thought that I was getting at that very moment. And I'm like, how stupid and disrespectful is that comment to our American soldiers?
I want to remind people of something in this chat that I forgot. It was on my heart. I know it's a small, 30 people in or whatever, but can I just remind people, when you go to these parades like 4th of July, that kind of thing, when the veterans come by and they're holding the flags and they got their guns and all that, get up off your feet, take your hat off, and put your hand over your heart. I was at a parade recently, and I saw all these people sitting down with their hats on, all that, and the veterans walking by with a flag. And I just want to remind people, tell your friends the proper etiquette when you're at these parades. When those veterans come by, get up, if you're able, of course, get your hand over your heart and get your hat off to show them respect when they walk by. Just want to I want to remind people that. I saw that. I told my wife, look at these people. I can't even believe this. They're sitting down. They got their hats on. They're on their phones, and the veterans are walking by. Just a reminder to everyone in the chat, next time you're at a parade.
Thank you. Thank you.
And this stream, guys, I wanted to put this together as a tribute, as a remembrance, and getting a lot of family-oriented YouTubers together, inspirational leaders like Cab 7, Lunatic Dad, Brenda G Designs, Uber Goober Lady. It wasn't about having an epic panel. It wasn't about the views. It's not about the likes. I don't care how many likes or dislikes I get. This is 17 years after the fact, and that we still are going through the healing from what happened that day.
Oh, yeah. It will be.
Hey,
I'm proud that I'm friends with all of you on panel as it is. So thank you, Ben, for your service. Thank you, Boomer. Thank you, Ghost.
Hey, Ben and Boomer? Do you see Technetic Beats question directed towards you guys in the chat?
Oh no, I can't even read the chat right now. Hang on.
Question for veterans. I once heard
I
one
have to put my
say.
glasses on and lean forward.
It's for veterans, but you guys on the panel are the veterans. I guess I thought it was for you.
Yeah.
It says, I heard one say once, they hate when people say that, he said. You don't know what I did in the military. Why thank me for it? You ever feel that way? Honestly, I was doing what I felt I needed to do when I needed to do it, and I ask nobody for thanks for anything that I've done. You know what I mean?
If I
It
had
was-
the chance to
it
serve
was
for
like-
my country, I would have done it hands down, hand over fist. I would have joined, but unfortunately, I got in a really bad car wreck and I wasn't able to do that.
Am I confused again? Ghost, you're a veteran?
Well, I was a 10-year retired firefighter.
Fireman.
Emergency-
Okay, okay. I mean, which
So I was running in the building, fighting floods and fall-ins and mines and everything else.
I can answer that. I can answer that.
Goes.
Technetic Beats. I can give you a true, honest answer about that. And yeah, I don't feel that I deserve that thank you and acknowledgement at times.
Real quick, I wanna say a special tribute to my dad, who just finished 30 years in the Marine Corps. Chief Warrant Officer 3, David Allen Doherty. Thank you for your service. I mean, that man is incredible. Like I'm really proud to be his son. He is an absolutely intelligent man. He now works at designing the logistics support for the Marine Corps at Quantico and in the intelligence base for the Marines in Albany, Georgia.
Wow. Thank you to Dad.
Chief
Give me a hell yeah in that damn chat for all the veterans in the United States of America. Give me a hell yeah.
Heck yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Ghost, I wasn't trying to diminish
Oh yeah.
service on the fire department. I thought we had talked before, and I thought you did say fire and not military, but I still respect firemen as well. Just so you know, I'm not trying to diminish that. I just want to know if I'm getting my mind is
firefighters and police to Homeland Security. So
you what?
A lot of companies tribute like the firefighters, first responders, police officers as like they're a Department of Homeland Security, which is an offhanded branch of the military, so to speak.
Yeah.
You get funding from FEMA and places like that.
Homeland Security is more like, I mean, it's almost like a civilian sector military type thing.
Yeah.
Does the veteran title attach to that or
no? Unfortunately,
no. I just curious because I'm learning here. You know, I never knew that what Ghost just said.
I think there are some veterans that are involved in it, but it's not actually branch
Can
of
I-
service.
Can I say something about that comment? You don't know what I did, so why are you thanking me?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about anyone else up here, but to me, it doesn't really matter what they did. It was the fact that they had the guts and the bravery to go and do it.
I've worked as the
Amen.
disaster relief support in North Carolina. I did it during Hurricane Matthew and a bunch of other disasters in North Carolina. And I was always a part of the first responders list for volunteers. I mean, I would be so happy to join my men in arms and do what I need to do to serve my country.
God bless you, brother. God bless you.
It's the same up here. Like I said, Brian and I are an American, but it don't matter if you're an American soldier, Canadian soldier. The thanks is still there, and we would still do anything for our country too. So,
and I want to add to what JoJo just said. I actually worked with. We actually worked alongside some of the Canadian Army when I was on Fort Drum. They came to Fort Drum for the 81 mortar training.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, I mean, I have mad respect for the Canadian Army.
Heck yeah, they have the best snipers in the world. And have you ever looked at the sniper stats for the longest shot ever made? Canada's on the top 3 list.
Yes, they are.
Can I say something? I want to reply to Technetic Beach there. When I go out in public, and I'm proud to do it, and I only wear it when I go out in public. Once in a while, you'll see me wear it here because I came from out. But I always am proud to wear my veteran hat whenever I go out in public, and it's to remind everyone when I'm out in public to notice a veteran's hat and to thank them for their service. I love when people come up to me, and the last people, a husband and wife, came up to me over at Costco, and it kind of scared me because they came at me pretty quick, but they had their hand out and shook my hand and said, "Thank you for your service," or "Thank you for your service." And I said, it's my pleasure to have served. And the reason why I did a very important job of the service. There would be no military if it were not for my job. And this is what I was told, because I really looked low on my job until someone told me. I was a cook. All our troops need to be fed, right? So I'm always happy when someone in public comes up and says, "Thank you for your service."
Let me tell y'all something.
Yeah, but Ben, it doesn't matter what you did, and you're in harm's way your whole time serving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let me tell y'all something. I may have been infantry, but I'll tell you, I spent a lot of time doing KP duty, okay? Now, that shit ain't easy. You got 1,000 mouths to feed, and just imagine the pots and pans you got to wash afterward. Dude, look, that job is not easy by any means, and if you're doing it just off the battlefield, if you're anywhere near the front lines doing it, that makes it even harder. So, yeah, give it up to the...
Hey, if it wasn't for the ones that cook for you, you guys wouldn't have the strength to fight.
I wish I still had the picture, but I served out the missile sites and the chow hall on base. But out in the missile sites, there was one cook for 30 people. Jeez. But someone took a picture of me back then in 1988, 89, and they saw me with a spatula in the kitchen. And they went ahead and they added a little white, the little white thing that you see in cartoons where you say a saying. And in that little white box, that little white cloud, as I'm holding my spatula, wearing my whites, it said "served," meaning 2 things. And I thought that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Awesome, brother.
What's HSFL putting up here?
I'm just putting up like the American flag and the 9/11 memorial.
Cool.
Let me get out of this real quick.
Yeah, they actually I saw something they actually some of that metal I think went into some battleships that they built recently.
Yes, they did.
Yes.
Oh.
Kind of ironic, or whatever word you would use for that.
Symbolic.
Symbolic, yeah, better word.
God, it would have been so amazing to actually go into the Twin Towers. They were such beautiful buildings.
One of the things I remember the most about September 11th, I can remember waiting weeks for that was about the same time the first Superman movie, or not the first Superman, but the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire was supposed to come out. And there was actually a poster done up where there was a spider web between the 2 Twin Towers, and it had the bad guys stuck in a spider web. They pulled the poster, and they canceled the release of the movie and didn't release the movie for another year afterwards.
Wow.
Yeah.
The reason
That's the one thing.
Boomer. Don't ever discount what you did in the military. You deserve thanks, my friend.
Yeah, Boomer.
Don't ever discount it, man. Don't ever
Never discount.
You deserve the thanks. Don't ever discount it. You deserve it.
You know, like the people from the fire department, first responders, ambulance, police department, all those people were just as important as the military. That's the way I look at it. We all serve the public, and I certainly thank Ghost Mafia for what he certainly did. No doubt about it.
You know, I would like to figure out how to address the firemen and policemen and that kind of thing properly, like the way we say thank you for serving with the veterans. I mean, you kind of made me think about that when you talked about the Homeland Security thing. You really made me think about that more. And, you know, Jeepers, the parade we just did recently in my own town, fire trucks all go by, and I see all the firemen, and thinking, man, these guys, they're there with their kids. They could rush into a building, and that could be the end of their life right there.
Yeah.
Yep. I've worked with a lot of firefighters working for the news over the years doing photography. I used to be the photographer for CAL FIRE here in California. And, man, I mean, what they have to go through just here in California, I couldn't imagine what they did on 9/11.
What I was gonna say after Dave was talking about the Spider-Man thing and all that, and they took it down. I mean, that's one thing that totally like ripped at me. Like I got totally upset at all these companies and things like that were exploiting that day. You know, and marketing it, making money off it. That was the most sickening thing about the whole thing. Was all these companies jumping on that, you know, selling their little antiquities or whatever they call them, you know, like showing the Twin Towers, you know, making models of the Twin Towers, selling them and making money off it and all that, and Hollywood exploiting it and making money off it and stuff like that. I mean, it's like it was sickening. It was upsetting to know that there were people out there, you know, doing that. You know, thousands of people lost their lives, civilians and you know, what do you call what's the group word for firemen and policemen and
law enforcement,
public services,
first responders?
Yeah. You know, all of them people like losing their lives, and then a week later, I'm walking down the damn streets of Indiana. I see 5 damn sidewalk booths up with big banners and signs saying selling World Trade Centers and things like that. Like they were selling these little like, and you know, just making money off it, exploiting it. And it just totally pissed me off. I was like, damn, man.
You know, this just made me think of a story the other day. You start talking about firemen and police officers. And Ben knows this. A few weeks back, I did security as volunteer work at a fair in town and to raise money for the marching band. But the story that I just want to tell real quick is I had the opportunity to spend about 4 hours at the front gate, me and my wife, with an actual sheriff. And we got to talk to the sheriff for 4 hours. And I do remember him saying that his children and his wife, every day he goes to work, are fearful that that might be the day he gets killed.
Yep.
He said he deals with that every single shift. Every shift. His kids are like, I hope you make it home tonight, Dad.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. I just thought of that. Maybe I do need to acknowledge the firemen and the police officers more.
Oh yeah.
I mean, more vocally. I mean, in my heart I do, and most people are mad.
I honor and respect anybody that puts on a uniform, you know, because Anybody that puts on a uniform, I don't care if it's a police uniform, fireman's uniform, military uniform, no matter what, Brett. Every time you put on that uniform, you lace up those boots and you head out your door, you don't know if that's the last time you're going to be stepping over that threshold.
Right.
You know?
Here's
You got to honor and respect
Yeah.
anyone.
Well, most people
I
don't
was
like police officers are usually doing something wrong.
Yes.
And that's why they
I
don't
was
like
trained
them.
by FEMA.
Yeah.
I was trained by
Yeah,
FEMA
I mean,
to
you
be.
got your bad eggs, of course, but the majority of them are out there doing, you know, they're keeping you safe. They're, you know, yeah, you got your, I mean, in the military as well. You know, you got your
Boston
people that are
bombings, right?
prejudiced. You got your people who are just plain assholes. You know, but the majority of them, you know, they're out there, you know, doing their job. And they're making sure that you can sleep at night and not have to worry about, you know, somebody breaking in your house or, you know.
So, Ghost Mafia, you were trained by FEMA. I was partly trained by Red Cross.
Well, I went for I was going for explosives recognition and handling, and then from there I went and took my bomb tech assistant. So like now you remember the Boston bombings?
Mm-hmm.
You remember, you know, when they was going in there and they was setting up water cannons and shooting the suspicious packages with a water cannon, things like that. That's what I'm trained to do.
This is separate event to the marathon bombings, or is this the same thing?
This is the same thing. The marathon bombings, yes.
Okay.
I literally sat here in my living room and was explaining to my wife what they were doing, why they were doing it that way, why, you know, what they were accomplishing by doing it, shooting a suspicious package with a water cannon and blowing the parts apart to dismantle the bomb and things like that. And I was explaining to her specifics, detail by detail, and up to the minute as to what they were doing. That's what I was trained for by FEMA, to be an emergency response tech in that field, so that if something were to happen, and I got this training after 9/11. After 9/11, FEMA came out and offered all kinds of training to fire department, rescue squads. You know, it was all out there. So
God,
yes, I have been trained to defuse bombs, things like that, handle explosives.
Wow.
So that's like the equivalent of the military MOS, which would be EOD.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is one thing I would like to say about the Red Cross. And I'm not here to hurt anyone's feelings, whoever worked for the Red Cross or volunteered for them, but there was one thing that happened, an event, that really pissed me off, and it took years to resolve. A lot of people around the world donated to the people that lost their lives during 9/11. Well over $1 billion. Billion. This was all volunteered money. It belonged to no one but to the people that had lost their lives, the families. And the Red Cross, through red tape, went ahead and said, how much is each person's life worth? How much is their job going to be worth for the next 20, 30, 40 years? Well, I look at it this way. Every person, every child that lost their life in 9/11 is equal to the next. So that money that was volunteered by all people around the world should have been split evenly. It shouldn't have taken no damn years and years for them to get that damn money.
Right.
Yep.
You know, my dad served, like I said, in Vietnam, and the VA has refused to give him his flag.
Wow.
Oh, that the hoe.
His what?
His flag.
See, I won't do anything more for FEMA because of what they did for North Carolina. I won't volunteer for them anymore because they were in 2016 when I was doing disaster relief in southeastern North Carolina. I was actually trying to get people out of the floodwaters on a dinghy in Fayetteville on Highway 95 in North Carolina and trying to pull people out anywhere from Fayetteville. I think we went all the way to Kenansville. and we were trying to pull people out, and FEMA was supposed to give back to the people $889 million, and that money still has not been given to those people for disaster relief.
Did Lunatic Dad leave?
Too much red tape going on, man.
So
he might have come into an area where he didn't have service. He's actually working. He's on the road.
This story, like years and years later, you know, the big, tall, like the G.I. Joes, they were like Barbie doll size, but they were G.I. Joes, and you can dress them up. Well, kind of had them all, like, you know, but we would go to the Goodwill and we'd look for, like, the clothes for them or the G.I. Joes, because they, you know, are expensive in the stores at that time. So we would go to the Goodwill and we'd look around, and we found, you know, like, what would be like a Foot Locker for them, right? And, you know, and it was taped up, and you could hear there was stuff in it. It was like a mystery box, right? We kind of wanted it. It was a couple bucks, so we got it. When we got home, it was not filled with G.I. Joe things. It was filled with things from 9/11, postcards and things like that, like of the Twin Towers, from years prior to them collapsing and all that happening up to that point. And, you know, the planes crashing into them, and it was just a whole, like, little trunk full of them. You know, and you got to think of a Barbie doll size, it would be like a Foot Locker, you know, like, for, you know, and Jackson still has that Foot Locker, and we still have the postcards that are, you know, packed away and stuff. But yeah, it was just, you know, ironic that we would find something like that. It, you know,
I'll tell you, if anybody ever wanted G.I. Joe stuff in the late 70s and early 80s, all you had to do is hit up one of my mom's damn yard sales, because that's where all my G.I. Joes went.
yeah, they're hard to find. You can't find the original ones. So we have a guy here that actually has a shop, and he sells like the original Star Wars, G.I. Joes, you know, all the original toys. And so Jackson always, that's what Jackson thinks of as the toy store. But he calls it the guy store, because they have all the G.I. Joes and guys and stuff that guy buys, you know, off eBay, whatever, however he gets them.
Yeah, they were the first action dolls that they made with, like, real hair.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you can get yourself a Bionic Man or Superman or something like that, and it's all like G.I. Joe, like they all had like real hair.
Yeah. Yeah, and so
yeah, when I found out how
you
much
can't find the big ones now, and Kynan actually donated them back to the Goodwill, all those G.I. Joes before, like the bigger ones, and now you can't find them anywhere, you know, unless you want to pay an arm and a leg.
Where you pull a string and they say, "Go, Joe."
Yeah, Kynan had them all, and then so Jackson likes that store because it's the guy store, but it, you know, it sells the little G.I. Joes, but they're the original.
I looked up a G.I. Joe that I had back in 76, 77. The redhead dude, I can't remember his name. All I remember was like he had this red fizzy hair.
I know who you're talking about.
I looked it up online. Somebody sold one for like $15,000.
Yeah.
And all I could do is sit here and just cuss my mom, because mine went for 50 cents at a yard sale.
Right? Yeah.
You know?
I was like, oh, why did we give all that stuff? Like, you know, like, not just for the money aspect, but that Jackson would want them, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they're hard to find. Even the little ones are hard to find now. You can't find them.
Yeah.
So, Jackson has some of the originals, but that boy don't leave them in a box. That boy rips them out open, the packages, the whole 9 yards, and that boy plays. And he plays till their arms and legs falls off. And then they're injured soldiers, you know, so.
I want to take a second to acknowledge Scab over here. And say thank you for everybody that's come in. Rubik's Cube Gaming Man, Honey Bubs, Michigander Man, Rob was in there. I missed seeing Rob in there. I'd probably brought Rob up on the panel. Honey Bubs, Lady of the Lake, James Sharpshooter, he's great mod. Sherry V, Lady Swan's in there. Jenny.
Lady who?
Lady Swan. You know her. She's the one that sneaks up behind me every once in a while and pulls me back in my chair. And, you know.
Much love, Lady Swan.
But yeah, thanks. I want to thank everybody in the chat for showing up here tonight and making it such a nice turnout. I seen at one point we had over 60 people in here, which is probably the most I've ever had in the chat on one of my streams before. So thank you guys for making this a successful panel.
Hey, Ghost, I just wanted to say I was doing a live stream earlier right before I sent all my followers over here as much as I could. I was doing another live hurricane update, and then I shoved everybody over here for you.
I was in there for a few minutes, but I was trying to get dinner and everything else too.
Yeah, I was trying to too.
Hey, Ghost. I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm just going to sit back and listen because I'm starting to lose my voice and I'm not feeling the greatest. So I'm just going to sit back and listen to you guys. Let me know when you're done and I'll help you shut it down and that.
Hey, everybody. We are so close to 70 likes. Can we get that button smashed over and over again until we get to 70 or 80 likes? If there's any channel that deserves to get 100 likes right now, it's this video with all these amazing people here on panel. If you have not yet, please tweet it out. Please send it over the interwebs. Get it out. Let's get closer to 100 likes. 9/11 was a tough day for all of us, but we are all coming together to share our experience and what we went through and how it affected us and what it's kind of like now about what our experience is. And it's so cool that we get to all come on panel here and talk about it.
And I have to say, this is one of my first epic panels before. I've had people up on this panel that I've never had here before, like Cab 7 and Brenda G. Green Bay Wacky has been on my panel before, but all these people that's been up on the panel tonight are all stars, definitely all stars. Check them out, show their channel some love.
And then there's Boomer.
Yeah, there's Boomer.
You got a panel of all-stars plus Boomer.
And Aniki, because I wasn't mentioned either, Boomer, so don't feel bad.
Wait, I thought you were part of the all-stars. I'm sorry.
No.
Part of the all-star. You're like a permanent fixture on my channel. You're like on every.
I'm permanent. I'm staying.
It's cool. I'm new to the YouTube crowd, but hello, everybody.
It's okay. I'm just a wallflower. I sit in the corner and I do what he does.
Oh, there's Michigander Man. Michigander Man on panel.
I just start his panels for him because his internet's slow. I'm the unpaid intern.
JoJo is the producer of the show for this evening for the simple fact that my internet has been like, it will go out and I may disappear for a few minutes, but if she's running the show from her end, you guys won't get all kicked off.
Eat it.
True.
Eat it.
Translation, we can literally eject Ghost out of his own stream and take it over, guys.
So this pretty much is a Tuesday takeover.
Technically, yeah, it is a takeover Tuesday. JoJo is running things from her end on my channel. If she has full control, she can make mods if she wants to make mods, or
Oh, can I please be a mod? Can I please?
You already have
I gotta roll, Ghost. I've got to put a power steering pump in my Ford Explorer for my wife.
It's a likely story.
No, she just got back from the auto parts store and said, "You're gonna put this in tonight." The power steering's been out for like 2 weeks.
Oh,
You gonna put that in today?
when you're done, you can come up here tomorrow morning, Wacky, and fix my car because we're getting a car tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thankful to be a mechanic and do my own work, but you know.
I
Are
am
you
too,
guys
man.
actually getting a vehicle?
Yeah, it
Awesome.
comes tomorrow morning.
You
at
know I'm only
11:30.
6 hours south of you, right?
Yes, sir. I do know that.
Awesome, Jojo and Brian. Congrats, man.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
That's
I
okay.
wish I
Glad
could
things
drive
are
and had a
turning
vehicle.
around a little bit
Go
for
ahead
you guys.
and start to wrap
Yeah.
up anyway.
I just want to say thanks for having me on the panel, Ghost. You know I love you.
Can I say one more thing before we end this? Both my boys have always wanted to join the military. Kind of, see, he's like, hoo-ah, or whatever they say.
It depends on what
and
branch you're in.
he really wanted to be in the military. But he has a blood clotting problem that his blood does not clot. Kynan does, my older son. So
Yeah, that'd be a definite no-go.
that was a no for him. It was devastating. So he wanted to be a police officer. Things went down with that. He can't do that. So now he's going to school to be an EMT.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Nice.
And everybody knows Jackson's story. I mean, he's dead
Yeah.
set. He wants to be, in the military somehow, some way. And with all his health stuff, I'm not going to be the one to say no. I'm going to be the one to say chase your dream. But
Yeah.
I'm proud of my boys. I'm proud that they want to serve their country.
I'm going to say this. My father, he was kept out of the Marines because of a kidney infection he had as a child. So, but that was back in the 60s. So, like, I don't know. It's lately, these days, though, they have been pretty lenient on certain things. They've been more accepting to, because now, like, every branch wants people now. They got to fill. They have to fill quotas. They have to, they got to fill slots.
And that's what I'm saying is I'm not going to tell Jackson, no, you can't because of this and this.
If he was,
what if in 5 years they have a cure for what he has?
Exactly, and not to mention, like, if he was interested in, like, communications or something like that, restrictions are a little, the more lenient on stuff like that. It depends on what branch and what MOS you're trying to get into. They could be a little more lenient on it. I mean, if you wanted to get into the Navy or Air Force or something, in communications or something like that, it could be possible.
Yeah. And that's why I said, I always make my boys dream big and try to achieve those dreams, and don't let anybody tell you can't do something, because
there's always something you can do somewhere.
Go ahead and wrap up this panel, guys, but I do have a special request for Cab 7. If he could take us out with a prayer for all those that lost their lives or lost family in September 11th. If you could do that for us, Cab, I would love that.
Oh, you're ending.
I would too.
You're ending the panel, Ghost.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream here in a few minutes, and
I'll stay till the end then. If you're ending it, I'll stay till the end.
Kind of go back with the family and give thanks for everything that we have and everything that we've been through, and be thankful that we're all still here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if I could get to just a prayer to take us out, I would love that if you would mind doing that, Cab.
Oh wow. I'm not a very good prayer. The one that's good at that is Dave.
Or you could sign us out with proud to be an American.
I mean, yeah.
I know you've done that one before. Made it sound good.
You're the veteran, Cab. I'm not.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean,
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you are the inspirational influence of our YouTube generation right now, Cab.
I'm kind of like Father Mulcahy on MASH. Yeah. Heavenly Father, I just ask right now that you come into the lives of those today that are remembering 9/11. Lord God, I just ask that you bring healing upon all those families that were left behind. Lord, we already know where those that have passed on, where they're at now, they're in a good place with you. Let's always keep remembering those who we lost. And Lord God, bless all those first responders, ambulance, fire, police, military. Lord God, keep blessing those. And I ask this in your name. Amen.
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 And I want to thank everybody in the chat that's been here this evening. James the Sharpshooter, Man Fam, for doing all the mod stuff, dropping links, PayPal's, Facebook, Twitter. Everybody's links up on the panel and everything. Everybody.
I saw that. Special thanks to the Sharpshooter, the Man Fam.
Oh,
Thanks,
yeah.
son James.
Hands down.
Everybody.
I salute you, brother James.
Uber Goober Lady, Lunatic Dad, Cab 7, Green Bay Wacky, Aniki, Boomer Rock, HSFL, Brian, JoJo for co-hosting with me on this. I cannot express enough how much you guys all mean to me. So
You mean a lot to
thanks
us,
for
too,
being
man.
here.
Well, thanks for asking me.
Ditto,
Thank you
brother.
for putting this on. Thank you.
Could we please get up to 70 likes here as we sign off? We are just one away from 70 likes on this.
One away.
I don't know if you guys can hear that. Can you guys hear that? Last post is playing in the background.
What is it?
Last post. Listen.
Wow.
All right, guys.
Smashing
And with that, I'm
like
going to go
button.
ahead.
Now
and
we're
end
close
the
to
stream.
80. Only
Thanks
5
everybody
away
for
from it.
coming.
Well, just have a great night, everyone in the chat. And Ghost, thanks for the remembrance stream.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Ghost.
Ghost.
Yeah.
All right, see you guys later.
Take care, everybody.
Carol.